Ottawa.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hello, I'm Robin Brown. I'm the co-lead of the 613-819 Black Hub. Welcome everyone here with us at Ottawa City Hall and online to this Black Community Federal Candidates Debate. Bonjour, je suis Robin Brown, co-responsable du Black Hub 613-819. Bienvenue à tous ici avec nous à Hôtel de Ville d'Ottawa et en ligne et à ce débat sur les candidats fédéraux de la communauté noire. We acknowledge that we're on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people and extend our respect to them for their centuries-long stewardship of the land. We also acknowledge that this is a land to which our African ancestors were forcibly brought and upon whose forced labor its current wealth is built. And we acknowledge the resistance Indigenous people and our ancestors constantly maintained against their oppressors and commit to keeping up that resistance. I now pass things over to our moderators, Sarah Onyanga from CHUO 89.1 and CBC's Adrian Herwood.
Thank you, Robin. Merci. Et pour répéter en français, nous reconnaissons que nous sommes sur le territoire non cédé du peuple algonquin Anishinaabe et nous leur témoignons notre respect pour leur gestion séculaire de la terre. Nous reconnaissons également que c'est la terre sur laquelle nos ancêtres africains ont été amenés de force et sur le travail forcé de laquelle sa richesse actuelle est construite. Et nous reconnaissons la résistance que les peuples autochtones et nos ancêtres ont constamment maintenue contre leurs oppresseurs et nous nous engageons à maintenir cette résistance. Adrian?
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to our audience. And welcome to our candidates as well. Simone Messi of the Green Party, welcome. Greg Fergus of the Liberal Party, welcome. Both are running in the riding of Hull-Elmer. And Huda Mukbil, running for the New Democratic Party in Ottawa South. Huda, welcome. Sandrine Petillon, running for the Conservative Party in Hull-Elmer, was to participate, but pulled out of the debate at noon today. Now, the format for tonight's debate will be as follows. Candidates will have 2 minutes for opening statements. In responding to questions, candidates will have 1 minute with 30-second follow-ups. If we moderators allow it, we have asked the candidates to respond to a number of questions, first in French, followed by debate in the language of their choosing.
Direct.
So let's begin with opening statements. Following the draw, the order will be the NDP candidate, the Green candidate, and then the Liberal candidate.
Alors nous allons commencer par les déclarations d'ouverture et après le tirage au sort, l'ordre sera d'abord le NPD, suivi du candidat du Parti vert, suivi du candidat du Parti libéral.
My mic is, okay. Good evening, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Huda Mukbil, and I'm running with the NDP in Ottawa South. I'm very pleased to be with you today. Thank you for the organizers, and thank you to my colleagues who are here with me today, and thank you for the audience at home and here in City Hall. Very proud to be amongst all of you. I have deep roots in Ottawa South. I grew up in Ethiopia. I was born there, left civil war, and then moved to Cairo, Egypt, where you can be Arab and Muslim but not gain citizenship. Then I moved to Canada. So I really do appreciate the meaning of citizenship and what Canada has to offer, which is tremendous: democracy, equality, and the rule of law. I'm in Ottawa South here running to serve my community. I have attended high school here at Ridgemont High School, Carleton University, where I studied law and graduated with an honors, and then joined the Canadian Security and Intelligence Service. I was one of a handful of Black women at the Canadian Security Intelligence Service serving as an intelligence officer and an investigator. I worked there and at the same time faced systemic racism while making tremendous contributions in that organization. And I'm proud to say that I'm the only national security expert in Canada who is a racialized woman speaking out on the lack of diversity in all of national security in Canada. Subsequent to my work at the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, I joined the Canada Border Service Agency, where I served as a strategic national security advisor, and then joined the Black Class Action Group as an advisor. And what I saw there, and given my experience with systemic racism, I feel really passionate about helping in making sure that equality happens here in Canada. We are lagging way behind other countries, including south of Canada. The Black Action Group is really at the forefront of trying to change equity laws here in Canada, and they need all of our support. I've spoken to so many women who are facing the intersectional forms of racism in the Government of Canada, in our public institutions. And I feel that it's time that we give them mainstream voices, because that's not happening right now. Their voices are being locked, and they're not in the mainstream. There's no women at the Status of Women Committee to bring those voices out, nor is the media has any interest in this. And so this is the reason, really, why I decided to get into politics, because I feel that if we don't have representation, we can't tackle the tremendous issues that we need to be tackling in terms of systemic racism and ensuring that everyone has opportunity for growth, for employment, and all of this impacts, families, communities. And so I'm running because I want to represent Black women, Black men, people who have been subjugated to so much discrimination in this country.
Ms. Mogbo.
And I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, bonjour tout le monde, and thanks for having me here. It's a great honor. So my name is Simone Yakini Messi. I'm the candidate for the Green Party in Elmer. I was born in Quebec, in the Eastern Township. I moved in the area for the work. I'm a public servant. I work for the DND as a French teacher. So I teach French to an advanced level to DND members. In fact, now I'm a team leader with a group of French teachers, and we work together and we help those members to reach the advanced level. So again, it's an honor to be here. I think it's very important what you're doing. I think that effectively systemic racism does exist. It's important to see where it is, to name it, and to work together to find solution and to go forward and to make sure that we build our society, Canada, that's really based on equality of chance, the rule of law, yes, and that we see each other as all equal and as person. We all live together, we're all trying to build a better world, and I think that's very important. And as a member of the Green Party, also, I think that climate change is very important. That's something we need to tackle and to really make sure that we also all together will be able to reverse the tendency that's there right now. And in the same feel like there's all the environmental racism also that's out there that we need to answer, to address, to make sure that that also will go away and that we will, every Canadian will be able to realize themselves and become what they want to become, to be in the profession they want to be, and like raise their family, be happy, and live in a great place.
Thank you.
Super. Bonsoir tout le monde, Greg Fergus. Bonsoir tout le monde, Greg Fergus. Je suis le député sortant de Hull-Elmer, puis aussi le co-président du caucus des parlementaires noirs. My name is Greg Fergus. I'm the outgoing member for Hull-Elmer, and I am also the co-president of the Canadian Parliamentary Caucus. My friends, it's been a very long road that we've been on over the last number of years. Since the founding of the Black Caucus 6 years ago now, we've been working very hard to try to bring the interests of the Black community to government and making sure that your voices are being heard. So many of you have been working for years in this field to try to create a better future. And I can tell you that as chair of Black Caucus, we have heard you and we are working with you to making sure that we can bring some changes. Our government, I'm very pleased and proud to say, that we were the first government in the world to recognize to not only recognize but adopt the United Nations Decade for People of African Descent. We have invested in the policies and in the budgets which are necessary for us to fulfill our mandate with the UNDPAD declaration. We've invested in communities, and I know that our work hasn't been perfect, but it's been a really good start and a good way forward. And we've been very open and honest to listening to ways that we can work better and stronger together. We have a bold plan for housing. We've done work on economic empowerment for the Black community. We have a plan to make childcare more affordable so that more Black families can integrate into the job market. We have worked with Black public servants, in particular, to making sure that we've started up that call to action so that we can mentor and sponsor Black employees so that they can rise up in the public service. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that my time is running out, but we'll have a little bit of time to discuss at the end, and I'd be happy to take all your questions. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you for those introductions, and I think we're about ready to start our debate. So we're going to start with the subject of health care. And of course we know that the UN Decade for People of African Descent runs to 2024, and the UN's 2017 report cited extensive anti-Black racism in Canada. So we're going to start with health care. And the question is this: the COVID pandemic exposed systemic inequities Black folks have known about and lived with their whole lives. Given there's no going back to normal, would you support the federal government declaring anti-Black racism a national health crisis?
Alors, je reprends en français, oui. Étant donné que la décennie des Nations Unies pour les personnes d'ascendance africaine se poursuit jusqu'en 2024 et que le rapport de l'ONU de 2017 constate que le racisme envers les Noirs est répandu au Canada. Dans le domaine des soins de santé, la pandémie de la COVID a mis en évidence les inégalités systémiques que les Noirs connaissent et subissent depuis toujours. Comme il n'y a pas de retour à la normale, seriez-vous favorable à ce que le gouvernement fédéral déclare que le racisme envers les Noirs constitue une crise sanitaire nationale?
I think we'll start with Greg Fergus.
Absolument. On sait très bien comment la santé mentale des Noirs qui sont tellement frappés par le racisme. On a vu ça certainement au cours des 16 derniers mois, depuis les vidéos qu'on a vues qui est sorties des États-Unis, commençant avec Ahmaud Arbery, Christian Cooper, puis suivi par George Floyd. Vous savez, les Noirs, nous sommes résilients. Même en face, en dépit de tout le racisme qu'on confronte à chaque jour, on continue à fonctionner. Mais ça vient à un prix. This has a cost. Racism grates at us. It creates mental health issues. This is a reason why in 2018, after the Prime Minister recognized not only the UN Decade for People of African Descent and becoming the first Prime Minister to acknowledge the existence of anti-Black racism, in that budget, the first thing that we did was that we made sure that there were measures put in and funding put in to Health Canada to research by Black researchers the issue of mental health for Black people. This was a very important initiative, which has now led to conclusions and to a commitment by this government for $6.5 billion to deal with mental health issues and to making sure that they are focused towards Black communities, communities of racialized Canadians, Indigenous Canadians, youth, people, to making sure that we have appropriate mental health responses, and we're looking to work with the provinces to making sure that this happens.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Messi.
Oui, merci. Assurément, il faut identifier le problème, le documenter, établir les faits et être en mesure d'y répondre, parce que c'est effectivement un problème que les gens à la peau noire aient des difficultés à avoir accès aux soins de santé. C'est inacceptable. C'est quelque chose qui doit pas arriver. Alors, c'est très important de répondre à ça clairement et de nous assurer qu'il y ait des programmes en place pour procéder à l'éducation des gens qui, dans le système, sont pas en mesure de faire leur travail correctement. Et puis identifier également les systèmes qui ont été bâtis d'une façon à répondre inadéquatement aux personnes de couleur. Assurément qu'il faut mettre en place des programmes, il faut regarder les choses, il faut identifier où exactement on retrouve ces situations-là. Il faut bien l'encadrer, le voir, éduquer nos concitoyens qui sont pris dans une mentalité qui va nuire au développement de la communauté racisée, et puis les aider aussi parce que, oui, ça cause des problèmes de santé mentale du côté de la communauté racisée, mais de l'autre côté, les gens qui agissent comme ça ont également des problèmes de santé mentale auxquels il faut répondre parce que c'est pas un comportement qui est acceptable, puis les gens qui sont dans le système et qui le font vivre, il faut qu'ils s'en rendent compte également pour pouvoir changer ce système-là et faire en sorte qu'il soit équitable, ouvert à tous et qui réponde aux besoins des concitoyens, peu importe leurs origines, leur couleur et d'où ils viennent. Oui.
OK. Merci. Madame Mokpil.
Okay, so within the Black community, COVID-19 has revealed the disproportionate impact of COVID was felt by the Black community. And that was felt because already there were health issues in the community. And these were there because of inequalities. In this country, we don't invest in pharmacare. We haven't invested in dental plans. We have not invested in eye examinations and other health concerns as well. And so because we don't have an overall and comprehensive healthcare system that supports people, because Black communities are not able to access these healthcare opportunities that others do, they've been impacted more adversely due to COVID. In terms of mental health support, one of the issues, systemic racism, people have been having to fight systemic issues individually. And so when you look at our grievance processes, when you look at Human Rights Commission investigations, when you look at these issues, people are tackling them on individual basis against the system. There's an imbalance that makes people very anxious and feeling very alone during these instances. And that has an impact on families, on people that are experiencing it, and that also has physical impact on their health. So all of this together, yes, it's a crisis, right? It's a crisis and we need to tackle it. And also, I know that many, many women that I know and men that have experienced these systemic racism issues don't feel that they have the support. First, in terms of mental health, we don't have, a lot of people don't have insurance, are not able to see therapists. That's a problem. The other problem is that we don't have enough Black therapists that understand. And so people are going into these meetings and, are being questioned whether their experiences are real or perceived. And that's difficult. So we need to invest in more Black professionals that can help and assist communities and understand where they're coming from.
Perhaps I can just follow up with you, Mr. Fergus, because you state that this is indeed an issue, it's indeed a problem, but what concrete steps would you take in order to address the anti-Black racism that is endemic in this country in a systematic manner? What are some kind of examples of programs that you would institute to address the large problem?
Sure, I'd love to do that, and thank you for that question. That's a very important one, and it's one which I think we have really undertaken as a government since, especially over the 5 years, but especially in the last year. So to that regard, we've invested in, taken big steps in terms of recognizing where the government has been weak in providing supports to Black Canadians, whether that is in the very public issue of entrepreneurship, creating prosperity, if that's another public issue in terms of our justice and public security system, whether that's in terms of representation within government and making sure that there's a good distribution of Blacks at all levels of the public service. And then there's the issue of culture and heritage, making sure we value it. So we've taken action in 3 out of those 4 issues. The cultural stuff, that's in our platform, and we're going to be working on that going forward with our $30 million plan, to help support Black journalists, media representation, and media outlets that are organized by Black people, to making sure that we get to tell our stories and that we have support for that. But the one issue, the 5th, which I think is the gift that will keep on giving, it's a very non-sexy issue, but it's the one that I think has the biggest impact, and that is disaggregated data. Disaggregated data, the government has started in 2018, and we've made small steps on that, but in 2021, we've now taken this a lot farther in terms of the budget, in terms of making sure that we're collecting disaggregated data throughout government. You can't change what you can't measure. So you need to be able to start asking these questions. Who is where? How are our policies and programs meeting the Black community? And if it's not, then I think people of goodwill will have the data and act on it to making sure that we do so. This is big, and this is things that we are hoping through Stats Canada that we're going to be working with the provinces and municipalities to making sure that this spreads more than just the federal government.
Mr. Messi, I want to pose the same question to you, in terms of just concrete plans that your party would have to address this issue that we know is a systemic one in this country.
Yeah, like I was saying, like some program are for sure and to need to be put in places, and we need to identify exactly where are the problem and create like data. Like Mr. Fergus was saying, we need to identify where are the problem, and with the data, that's how we're going to be able to address the problem and create the right program and put the right person also in those positions, because that's very important. So, work with the Black community, with all the different community, because Canada has like all kind of community. Like my grandfather was Italian, my mother was French. Like everybody has like is coming from everywhere in the world. But for that specific issue, I think like we need to find the right person that will be able to lead those programs and to make sure that we address those problems and that we solve that and we go forward, but we need to work together.
Ms. McBowen.
Michael Baldwin said, how much time do you need for your progress? And, I looked at the debate from last 2019. We're still talking about the same issues. We need a change to an employment equity law that's 25 years old. It's 25 years old. Women are still fighting alone. We only have this Black class action that's a group that's come together. They're underfunded. There's so much change that needs to occur, and the disaggregated data is a great step, and I agree with it, and I'm very thankful that you've brought that forward. But we already know that even in Ottawa South here, we know that Middle Eastern black men are still stopped, carded by Ottawa police. A report came out just a few days ago, as well as lack of diversity within policing. And in terms of employment, we have black communities. The commission, Public Service Commission, has revealed that for black communities, while they have the education, so they meet the merit, they're unable to get through because middle managers have a lack of buy-in to equity laws,
You're at the federal level. I'm saying the police, that's not really your jurisdiction. So what are you saying you would do in order to address that?
What I would do is, we want to change the employment equity law, updated. I will propose that we have a separate category for black employees, because black employees have been disproportionately impacted by that visible minority category. We have 3.4% black Canadians, but at entry level, it's much lower than that and almost non-existent in managerial and higher level positions. I worked at the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. The Canadian Human Rights Commission report of 2017 shows that they had 0% visible minorities in managerial positions. And so that's what we need to tackle. We need to make sure that there's representation at all levels and in decision-making, and quickly. We don't have the time to wait a couple of years, because in 2019, we talked about collecting data. We don't need to keep collecting data. We know there is a problem. Why don't we just fix it now? And the data can come when the data comes.
Before we get to the next question, very quick follow-up. Mr. Fergus, you wanted to respond. And I'm curious as to whether you agree with Ms. Mukbel's proposal, because it seems to be a novel one, creating a separate category for black people in this country as part of the employment equity legislation.
Sure. So just two things just to correct on that. One, the employment equity law has not been updated in 35 years, not 25, so it's worse than you think. But secondly, we've already started this work. And indeed, there has been a task force which has been struck. It will be reporting now. So when the new government comes in place, it will be in place, precisely taking a look at the categories which we have. We all know that blacks are the invisible part of the visible minority stream. So it makes very clear sense to me, and it would surprise me to no end if there was not a recommendation to make black Canadians a separate category, along with some other issues.
Final word to Monsieur Messi in this section. Would you like to add anything?
I'm not sure I really get all the issue here regarding of what you're talking about, like a specific category about just black people. I don't really understand. I think that when there's racism, it's like, yes, it will be black or all different ethnicity that will be targeted by that system or by those people who has certainly problem with their conception of the world and an equal world. So that's what can I add to that here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sir. Yeah. Do you want to follow? Did you want to? No?
No.
Okay.
So we've been talking about employment. The COVID pandemic exposed that black Canadians disproportionately work in low-paid, precarious work that puts them at risk. So what will your party do to address this? La pandémie de COVID a révélé que les Canadiens noirs occupent de manière disproportionnée des emplois précaires et mal rémunérés qui les mettent en danger. Que fera votre parti pour régler ce problème de précarité d'emploi? Monsieur Messi, vous voulez commencer?
Oui, merci. Donc, nous, une des promesses, c'est qu'on veut mettre en place un salaire minimum garanti. Donc, dans notre plateforme, il va y avoir un projet pilote pour démarrer, mais c'est de nous assurer que tout le monde ait le minimum pour s'assurer de payer le loyer, le logement, la nourriture, et ensuite être en mesure, donc, de continuer à s'éduquer, à aller à l'école, à nous assurer que le système d'éducation est aussi accessible. Mais à la base, c'est vraiment de permettre à tout le monde de se nourrir, de se loger avec un revenu minimum garanti. Donc, on vient tout de suite répondre à ces inégalités là, qui sont là en permettant à tous là, de répondre aux besoins fondamentaux.
Ms.
The New Democrats, we support workers. That's our foundation, and it's a basic principle within our party. And we want to make sure that people have free access to education. So we're proposing that post-secondary education be free. We're proposing that we cancel the interest rate because we don't believe that the government should profit off student loans. That education will, being free will help with address inequalities to all racialized Canadians and others that are unable to meet that right now. And in terms of employment support, we want to make sure that we have benefits as the economy shifts. We want to make sure we expand those benefits and provide retraining programs. As well as for women, we want to make sure that we have childcare, which is $10 a day, and invest into childcare centers, because with COVID and with limited space, that's also another issue that's impacting families and parents to go back to work. As well as our healthcare program, which is the comprehensive healthcare that would cover pharmacare, dental care, and eye examination. These are costs that are costing small businesses a lot of money, and so if we were to elevate those stressors, then we would be helping businesses save about $600 per employee per year. So all of these measures can help our economy grow again and address inequalities.
Merci de votre question. Il y a plusieurs façons à adresser cette question. La première chose, que pour soutenir les travailleurs qui sont dans des jobs précaires, c'est que le gouvernement a annoncé en 2019, on a bonifié en 2021 l'allocation canadienne pour les travailleurs. Ça, c'est un montant qu'on va additionner, qu'on va donner quand vous allez payer vos impôts. C'est une façon de s'assurer que les gens qui travaillent dans des jobs qui ne payent pas beaucoup, mais qui vont recevoir une bonification pour qu'ils puissent joindre les deux bouts à la fin du mois. Ça, c'est une chose. La deuxième chose, pour ceux qui travaillent, qui ont des enfants. Une chose que je suis très content de voir que ma collègue du NPD soutient l'initiative libérale pour avoir le programme national des garderies à 10 $ par jour. En tant que Québécois, je suis très fier de ce programme-là. C'est pas juste un outil, c'est pas une politique sociale, c'est vraiment un outil économique pour s'assurer l'intégration des gens, pour s'assurer, et surtout des femmes, dans le marché du travail. On sait bien que les Noirs profitent davantage de ce programme-là, et ça, c'est quelque chose qui va faire toute la différence. Il y a d'autres initiatives pour ceux et celles qui ne sont pas portés à travailler pour un job qui ne paye pas beaucoup. On a aussi l'opportunité avec le programme d'entrepreneuriat pour les Canadiens noirs de fonder leurs propres entreprises ou d'accroître leur propre entreprise avec ce programme-là qui est géré, décidé par des Noirs pour les Noirs. Je pense que ces trois initiatives donnent une réponse plus compréhensive à la question de la précarité de l'emploi.
Okay, so there's the minimum, the guaranteed basic income, the daycare, the supports, the
sorry, so it's not a guaranteed income, it's the Canada Workers Benefit.
The what?
Canada Workers Benefit.
But the NDP, I'm looking at her, about that as well. So how are y'all going to pay for all this? How do these wonderful programs pay for themselves? We can start with the NDP.
Yeah, well, the NDP has a very clear plan on that. We have, we're advocating for free education, free transit, so we can help climate change. We're advocating for the childcare and all of this. And that's, the million-dollar question is always, how do you plan to pay for this? Well, we're not for corporate interest, we're for people. We want to invest in people. We want to make sure that Amazon, Netflix, Walmart, these companies that are not paying taxes here in Canada do pay their fair share of taxes. This will generate over $25 billion according to the Parliamentary Budget Office, and we can invest in the programs that we need for our communities. We also want to make sure that we resource FinTrack as well as Revenue Canada to ensure that people who are hiding their money somewhere else are taxed on this, and it's brought forward here, as well as money laundering is also an issue, and it's estimated if we were to crack down on it and give the proper tools to authorities, we would be getting about $8 billion. And so we need to do these, take these measures and ensure that we are investing in employment, in childcare, and everything that supports our economy.
Thank you. Monsieur Messier?
Oui, c'est une bonne question. Éventuellement, c'est sûr qu'il faut financer ces programmes-là. Alors, c'est une réforme là, qui va devoir se faire parce que ça va impliquer une réforme fiscale. Il va falloir regarder tous les programmes qui sont déjà en place et voir qu'est-ce qu'on peut éliminer, comme je pense à l'assurance-emploi. Donc, il va falloir revoir comment on fonctionnait. Et puis, pour nous, pour établir un minimum, un salaire minimum garanti, ben, ça va être en allant couper dans les anciens programmes et aussi en allant chercher les revenus où ils sont. Oui, les compagnies qui ne payent pas leur juste part, ça, c'est une chose. Netflix ne paie pas de TPS. Est-ce que c'est normal? Pas du tout. Donc, les libéraux n'ont pas vraiment bougé de ce côté-là. Les géants du Web ont le champ libre. Là, ils viennent de bouger dans les derniers mois, là, juste avant les élections. Il était temps. J'espère qu'ils vont aller de l'avant puis ils vont réaliser, puisque ces projets vont finir par projet de loi, vont être adoptés. Donc, il y a plusieurs mesures qui peuvent être prises pour nous assurer de financer un programme comme celui-là. À plus long terme, c'est sûr que toutes les fonds de retraite qui vont être à revoir aussi, parce qu'avec le revenu minimum garanti, bien, ça remet toute cette façon de faire en question. Donc, c'est une réforme en profondeur. On va s'asseoir avec les fonctionnaires, on va regarder les chiffres, on va regarder les programmes, puis on va être en mesure d'emmener un budget respectable qui va permettre au Canada d'aller de l'avant. Donc, des citoyens en santé qui peuvent subvenir à leurs besoins, ça fait un peuple fort, ça fait un Canada fort qui peut se réaliser, continuer à être innovant, et c'est la base. C'est la base de toute la création puis du développement économique, qui sera une économie verte éventuellement.
Okay, so basically tax reform, pension reform, and reforming programs that are attached to income of any kind, right?
Ben, tax reform, je veux dire, une réforme fiscale. Donc, on ne veut pas doubler les programmes. Il va falloir travailler en partenariat avec les provinces, assurément, parce qu'il y a déjà des programmes qui existent, mais qui ne répondent pas à l'ensemble des besoins. Donc, il va falloir revoir ces programmes-là, parce que ça ne sert à rien de doubler certains programmes. Donc, revoir ces programmes et créer un programme qui va répondre aux besoins de base de tout le monde, et tout le monde va partir sur un pied d'égalité. Est-ce que c'est équitable qu'il y ait des gens qui naissent dans des familles riches, qui ont plus de moyens et qui, eux, peuvent aller dans les meilleures universités, et de l'autre côté, on a des citoyens qui ont de la difficulté à joindre les deux bouts et puis à payer leur loyer? C'est complètement inéquitable. Donc, nous, on se dit qu'en établissant un revenu minimum garanti, ben, à tout le moins, on donne un point de départ pas égal, parce que les riches seront toujours les riches, et donc, mais à tout le moins, on permet à tout le monde de savoir que je peux manger, je peux me loger, je suis prêt à étudier, je suis prêt à me développer, je suis prêt à créer, je suis prêt à aller m'entraîner, à être dynamique, puis je crois que tout le monde, toute personne, tout citoyen veut ça. Je veux dire, tout le monde veut se réaliser. Tout le monde veut un meilleur avenir, alors c'est dans cette optique-là.
Okay, merci. An interesting idea about looking at what is being duplicated by, programs that already exist in the provinces that the federal government shouldn't be doing. Like to look at duplication and to cut where you can and just level the income playing field. Mr. Fergus,
Thank
how are
you.
you paying?
Thanks for the question. I think a couple of things come to mind. First of all, we're very much the party that had brought in one of the first things we did when we formed government is that we we increased the taxes for the top 1% so that we were able to offer a tax reduction for the middle class. It's a way that we've been able to bring in the the Canada Child Benefit, which has really reduced poverty by 40%. I think this pandemic has really shown us that we need to make sure that we build an inclusive and green economy. We have seen the fault lines that have existed in our society. And I guess the question that really comes to me, in a sense, answering that question is, how could we afford not to make these investments to make a more inclusive Canada, to make a Canada where everyone has their place at the table, where certainly we can make sure that women are reintegrated into the economy after this secession that we've had, where women have been disproportionately hit, where Black Canadians have been disproportionately hit. So I think there is a measure of looking at what do we need to build up, to make us whole as a country. And also, we have a particular opportunity at this time is that we have historically low interest rates in which the government can borrow, and most economists would say that there is a long run horizon where these interest rates will continue to being low. We need to take opportunity now to then build an inclusive economy, one that will be more efficient, more durable, and will allow us to make sure that we get back into fiscal balance.
You talk about inclusion, but has your government not failed religious minorities, particularly in Quebec? And I'll say for this reason. We know that Bill 21 is a provincial law. It's not a federal law. The secularism bill, which basically prohibits government employees from wearing or donning religious symbols in the workplace. We know that this is an employment issue because many workers are impacted by that. Your government has failed to act, or the previous Liberal government, I should say, hasn't yet to intervene in court to challenge the law. First of all, I want to hear clearly from all of you, is Bill 21 a discriminatory law?
That is Bill 21. First of all, to your question that we have failed to act, it is not in our place to act at this time. This is still making its way through the courts, through the Superior Court system. I expect that it's going to end up at the Supreme Court. The Prime Minister has made it clear that if it comes to the Supreme Court, that's something that we have to take a look at.
But your Prime Minister, your Liberal leader failed to speak up in the debate, did he not, about whether it's discriminatory or not?
The Prime Minister has made it clear of where his values are on certainly in what people should have in terms of religious freedom. But you're asking, should the government act on this? Mm-hmm. We're not there yet. But we're obviously looking at this carefully. And when it comes to the Supreme Court, there could be reasons why the federal government would want to act precisely because when it gets to the Supreme Court, no matter how it's adjudicated, it would end up applying to all of Canada. So that would have to be looked at that time.
Ms. Muckball, is Bill 21 a discriminatory bill?
Absolutely discriminatory. And it's meant, and it was brought to attack women like me with the hijab. And, during the leaders' debate, when that question was brought up, the Bloc Québécois leader said it's to support women. He didn't say Sikh men. He didn't say the kibbutz of Jewish men. He said it was to uplift women, which means that he believes that women like me, it is very upsetting, It's also upsetting that our Prime Minister thinks that it's up to us. People in Quebec have to fight this through the courts. That's an investment from the community, from the very same women who have lost hope, aspiration, careers. We've got an entire province where women like me can't dream of having a job, of serving their country, of becoming police officers.
During that debate, the only party leader who spoke unequivocally about this was the Green Party leader, right? Annamie Paul. Your leader, Jagmeet Singh, seemed to kind of hem and haw a bit. No, he didn't seem to be as clear in his condemnation of the bill as being discriminatory.
That's right, and I've invited him to be. You know, we need to all stand up for injustices, inequalities, all of us as a country. But I suspect at this point, my question is to the Prime Minister, is that he is right now in power, and he should be fighting this, saying clearly, unequivocally, that this is discriminatory. That's what I expect from a Prime Minister. I don't feel that that support is being given to the community, nor are we speaking about Islamophobia, nor are we speaking about racism in the way that we should during election time. And we know that this is a really huge problem here in Canada.
We're going to have to move on quickly, but I would like Mr. Messier to follow up. Your leader spoke very clearly in the debate, saying that it was discriminatory. Do you concur? Is Bill 21 a discriminatory bill?
Okay, it's a very sensitive situation. Yes, Enemy Paul clearly about it. I have very intense discussion with my partner also, who's like, and I read a lot about the topics. And first, I think we need to clarify that it's not all public servant.
It's new government employees.
In authority, okay? Mm-hmm. So my position is like, I respect the Constitution. There's mechanism in there. The province will like pass that bill, and it will go through the judiciary system, and at the end, yes, it will go to the Supreme Court, and we will see what will happen there.
You haven't stated what you think. What do you think? What do you think?
Discrimination, it's like, si c'est discriminatoire, d'un point de vue, je comprends, et oui, ça peut l'être pour une personne, pour ses droits religieux. Mais de l'autre côté, il y a le point de vue des gens qui disent, ben, ça met tout le monde sur le même pied d'égalité. Donc, tout le monde, tous les citoyens, donc, sont devant un service de l'État qui est neutre. Et donc, eux, ils ne sont pas discriminés par rapport à leurs droits. Donc, et je comprends, et c'est des droits qui s'affrontent. On est dans une société de droits. Alors, quel droit a prééminence sur l'autre? Quel droit devrait l'emporter? Ce n'est pas à moi de trancher. Il y en a qui défendent le droit des enfants à leur liberté de conscience, donc liberté de penser, à ne pas avoir à tous les jours à être exposé à certains signes religieux. Donc, il y a ce point de vue-là. Donc, c'est une situation complexe, mais je comprends également les personnes dont le droit à la liberté de religion, eux, ils considèrent que leur droit aussi est remis en question. Alors, on est devant une situation assez particulière où l'État veut être neutre et laïque, et donc il trace la ligne à un endroit différent de ce qu'on a vu jusqu'à présent dans l'État au niveau du Canada, dans le multiculturalisme. Okay. Et là, ça crée des divisions et des tensions.
Thank you.
You mentioned childcare earlier. Parents in Canada continue to face exorbitant bills and long wait lists for childcare. In the 2021 budget, the federal government promised to work with provincial, territorial, and Indigenous partners to build a Canada-wide, community-based system of quality childcare that will deliver $10 a day childcare nationally within the next 5 years. Do you support that plan? This, of course, is for the Green and NDP. Do you support that plan? If not, what will your party do to make affordable, high-quality, inclusive, and culturally appropriate childcare available to all, including parents who work non-standard hours? Alors, c'est une question pour les deux autres partis. Les parents au Canada sont encore confrontés à des frais exorbitants, à de longues listes d'attente pour faire garder leurs enfants. Dans le budget de 2021, le gouvernement fédéral a promis de travailler avec des partenaires provinciaux, territoriaux et autochtones pour mettre en place un système communautaire de services de garde d'enfants de qualité à l'échelle du Canada, qui offrira des places en garderie à $10 par jour dans tout le pays. Alors, est-ce que vous soutenez ce plan? Et si ce n'est pas le cas, que fera votre parti pour mettre à disposition de tous, y compris les parents qui travaillent des heures atypiques, des services de garde abordables, d'autres qualités, inclusifs et culturellement adaptés? Ms. Mokbel?
Yeah, we will put action to words. I still don't understand as a woman, as a mother, why it's always being dangled during election season. And to view this as a feminist goal that we had to have a feminist at the House of Commons to introduce and implement. This should have been done long time ago. And so, yes, we are committed to affordable childcare. We want to invest in childcare providers and increase funding to them. And absolutely, it's on our platform. We want to make sure that half of our workforce, which are women, who have been disproportionately leaving the workplace due to childcare during COVID, are able to return. Otherwise, our economy will suffer. And so, absolutely, that's part of our platform. But we will take action.
Okay, Monsieur Messi.
Yes, it's also a part of our program. I think it's something that's very important. We've been living with a program like that, like in Quebec for years now, and it's very good. People love it, and now we're just like increasing the number of places. So I think that yes, all the other provinces that want to implement that, I think it's a great idea. Federal will be there to help them. If they want to do it themselves, I think the province should have the choice to go and develop their own program. That's like, and federal could like also be there to help them and put everything in places. But I think yes, it's something that's like needs to be done. And like my colleague was saying, like yes, it should have been done years ago.
So both my colleagues mentioned that, yes, it should have been done years ago, and I agree. 8 of 10 provinces have now signed on to this $10 a day daycare program that we've introduced. It was done. It's not a dangling promise. It's something that is actual government policy. It would have to be undone if the Conservatives were to come into power. I want to get to the point about, yes, it should have been done a long time ago. Indeed, it was introduced in October of 2006. There was a national daycare program that had been negotiated with all the provinces and territories at the time. And unfortunately, a previous leader of the NDP and the NDP party at that time teamed up with the Conservatives to destroy it and to not implement it, and as a result, called an election. And then we had 9 years of Harper, which meant that we saw no progress on childcare, we saw no progress on the environment. I'm hoping that this time people will follow through in making sure that they'll support this program going forward.
Can we also talk about farmer care? I know it's not directly related to childcare, but it's related to family health, because it's very, very expensive in Canada. So what is your party's position, NDP, Green Party, then Liberal?
Well, my husband's a pharmacist, so this is an issue that's dear and near to us. And working in the community and serving people, I know that many people are not taking their medications because they can't afford it. So the median income, some people have insurance and have income to be able to afford their medications, others do not. That's a really sad event here in a G7 country. And it also means that people are getting sicker for no reason because we don't have the coverage. And that impacts their quality of life and those that are around them. It also impacts our healthcare system because people get sicker as a result of not taking their medications. So absolutely, the NDP, this has been part of our policy that we need universal coverage for drugs. Now, the reason that we don't, the Liberals had promised on it and yet sided with Big Pharma when it came to making a decision on this. And this time around, it's not even included in their platform. They've just decided that this is not something that Canadians need. We're the only G7 country that has a healthcare program that doesn't have a pharmacare program, and that's just unacceptable for us. And it's unacceptable for so many Canadians that don't have coverage.
Monsieur Messier, l'assurance médicaments.
Oui, tout à fait. C'est un programme qui doit être mis de l'avant et qui doit couvrir l'ensemble du Canada. encore là, c'est un programme qui existe au Québec. Je pense qu'il devrait exister partout. Si les provinces veulent l'intégrer, ils veulent s'en occuper bien à elles. On parle de la santé, donc c'est une compétence qui est provinciale. Oui, le fédéral a son mot à dire. Par contre, je pense qu'il faut travailler toujours en partenariat avec les provinces. Il y a beaucoup d'expertise. Les hôpitaux sont dans les provinces. Et puis, donc, tout le système qui emploie on s'entend, là, des milliers et des milliers de personnes là, dans chacune des provinces. Donc, c'est avec elles qu'il faut travailler. Puis oui, il faut, au niveau fédéral, il faut que toutes les provinces aient un système là, de pharmacare et that's accessible to all citizens. Yes.
Effectivement, j'aimerais reprendre la balle au bond de mon collègue du Parti vert. C'est important de travailler en collaboration avec les provinces pour ce programme d'assurance médicaments. Et c'est exactement ce qu'on fait. Le problème, c'est qu'on a 7 gouvernements effectivement conservateurs qui existent au Canada qui ne veulent rien savoir de ce programme-là. Mais comme on avait fait en 2006, on sait bien que ça prend du temps. C'est la raison pour laquelle on a alloué dans le budget de 2021 un bon montant pour créer un bureau de coordination pour commencer les pourparlers avec les provinces. Et puis, il faut effectivement attendre qu'on a un changement de gouvernement dans les provinces, au moins dans certaines provinces clés, pour qu'on puisse vraiment entrer en négociation pour établir un programme national d'assurance médicaments.
You know, we know recently the IPCC issued a terrifying report, which essentially said that the world is running out of time when it comes to climate change. That climate change is an existential issue, and that governments need to take radical steps in order to deal with this impending problem, which really isn't impending, it's here right now. We also know that climate change is having a particular impact, particularly kind of deleterious impact on racialized communities, Black communities. The first question I have is, what are the radical steps? If the IPCC is saying that radical steps need to be taken, what are the radical steps that your party would take in order to address this matter of climate change in this country? What are the things that we need to stop doing immediately in order to deal with what is, you know, the biggest threat that the world faces right now? And I'll start with you, Mr. Fergus.
I think the first thing that we did, and the first thing which I think is really radical, is that we put a price on pollution. No one can pollute for free anymore in this country. We fought an election over it in 2019, hard-fought election. We fought an election over it in 2008. We lost it. And then there was no action on this for a decade, or just under a decade, until we formed government. We put a price on pollution. It was a minimal price, and then we campaigned on putting a larger price on it. We did that. Another thing that we need to do is to continue to put forward a legal framework in place to oblige governments to making sure that they're meeting their goals so that we can get to net zero by 2050. We also have an interim target in 2030, the Paris Accords. And we have put measures in place where many experts, environmental experts, respected experts have said that Canada will meet its goal. It will go between 40 to 45% under its 2005 greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. We still need to go further.
Do we need to stop all oil exploration right now?
No.
No.
Not right now.
Why not?
Because there are too many things which we use that have oil-based products. For example, this thing that we're using to separate us, to keep us safe for the pandemic. We haven't developed all the different replacement tools for that. There's still a lot of people who are driving cars. Now, we put in a plan where we said by 2035, no gas-burning car can be sold in this country. No new gas-burning car can be sold in this country. Maybe we need to work with California to bring that number even further, closer. But the point is that we're still in this period of transition. To make a change is tough. We're ready to make the tough changes, but we also have to recognize that you can't go so far that you lead yourself into a situation where you create such a reaction that you elect a government like a Harper government that will undo the work that needs to be done. We can't afford any backslide.
If I can just add one quick thing to the question for you, and then I'll ask the others. What would it mean to look at climate change through an anti-Black racism lens?
Yeah, well, that's actually a very good point. And matter of fact, one of my colleagues, Lenore Zahn, had taken a look at that and said that we need to have a racially. She proposed a private members bill, which received support, Bill C-20, 230 rather, which really did take an analysis, or forcing us to take an analysis of how environmental changes affects different communities, affects racism, and develop a strategy around that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Messi?
Yes, thank you. I have to agree with Mr. Fergus regarding the fact that we are using like oil every day, but we need to be more ambitious and cut, like the link to the oil industry the fastest as we can. And I don't think, now they have a good plan, the Liberal, that's what the experts are saying. Now we'll have to make sure that they will put in action that plan, and they will force it in the reality. Because what we saw from 2015 to today, the greenhouse emission, they just increased. So it's like, now you have to, do it. You need to do it. It's like, yes, we're more ambitious. We want to reduce it by 60% and by 2035. But you guys need to do it. You have a good plan, you have the best expert, you built a nice plant. Now you need to put that in action and go forward and make it. Because if you don't make it, there's an emergency right now.
Would you have bought a pipeline like the Liberals did?
No, we wouldn't have bought a pipeline, for sure. No, that's we still don't understand, I don't think somebody really understands why they bought a pipeline. No, for sure. There's some experts I was reading today that said that we need to just keep the temperature as it is right now. We need to stop extracting fossil fuel by 84%. By 2030, if I'm right, there's an emergency. So now we're using it, but we need to address the problem, and you guys need to be more aggressive on that problem, because it's not just a good plan that voter was like, oh, they have the best plan, we're going to vote for them. And then after, what? You're going to put the plan in the drawer, and we'll see you in 2 years, 5 years, and then we're still going into the wall. We need to move. You need to move. Put your plan in action. Like they're saying you have a good plan, it needs to be put in action and being addressed. Some industry are polluting a lot. Yes, electrification of the cars. We need to do all those things, and it has to be done right now.
Okay, Ms. McBoe.
Challenge accepted.
We have the highest emission. We need to get to net zero, but we have the highest emission in all of the G7 countries that signed up per capita that have signed the Paris Accord. So we may have good plans on paper, but that's not what's been happening and translating in reality. The government itself, its own emission has increased 11% since, and it's not just the NDP that's saying this. This has been reported on the Toronto Star just last week. So we're not doing everything that we need to do to get to net zero immediately. So that's what we need to do. And so the NDP plan is to ensure that we have a climate framework in place so that companies that are not meeting their obligations are fined and shamed. We also need to make sure that we invest in our transit, and only the NDP is saying that we need to make sure that transit is affordable, accessible, and free services to people so that we can encourage people to use public transportation. Here in the city of Ottawa, we used to have Greyhound to go between cities. We don't have that anymore. We need to invest in those kind of services, as well as...
Versus the Greyhound.
Sorry?
You talk
Yeah, Greyhound bus services that move between cities. We don't have that anymore, so we need to invest in that. We also need to invest in electric vehicles more aggressively.
Okay.
Can I add?
I think Mr. Fergus first, and then Mr.
Okay,
Messi.
sorry.
So, for those on the Quebec side, je suis très fier d'être le proposeur de l'idée de transformer notre système de transport en public du côté du Québec pour avoir un tramway qui va rejoindre Ottawa. Je pense que ça, c'est une des plus grandes façons de réduire les gaz à effet de serre. On a fait beaucoup de progrès. Je me souviens quand j'ai commencé à pousser pour cette idée-là, j'étais tout seul sur l'échiquier politique. Et maintenant, on est dans des discussions finales avec le gouvernement du Québec pour ficeler le financement de ce projet de tramway. Je pense que ça, je suis 100% d'accord avec mes collègues que des investissements dans le transport en public pour électrifier nos transports en commun, ça, c'est une grande façon pour réduire les gaz à effet de serre.
Bon, je voulais parler du même sujet. Oui, c'est un beau projet, mais il manque le fédéral, n'a pas encore indiqué combien il allait mettre. Et ce qu'on entend des différents partenaires, c'est que ça traîne. Donc, why they didn't say how much? Why it's not finished? Why, it's not going forward? That things need to be activated. It's been since 2014 that the circulation network, the car network is too congested. It's not sufficient. It's like, what's going on? Why you guys are not going forward? You've been there for 6 years now. It's like you need to put pressure on your government and make sure that you will do it if you go there. If I go there, for sure, that's the first thing tomorrow for Elmer. Make sure that, the different partners, municipal and provincial, have the money to do what they need to do and start that project and, make it done.
I wanted to move on to the next topic because we're at the top of the hour, quite literally, and we still have two very important topics still. Black business. So earlier this year, the government announced millions for loans to black businesses, which is great, but only if they have business. In the alternative federal budget recovery plan done by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives in fall 2020, black communities called for the government to set a government procurement target for black businesses at 20% in the first year, but this was not in the budget. What will your party do to ensure that a percentage of government contracts goes to black businesses? Alors, il s'agit des entreprises noires. Dans le plan de relance alternatif pour le gouvernement fédéral, réalisé par le Centre canadien de politiques alternatives à l'automne 2020, les communautés noires ont demandé au gouvernement de fixer l'objectif d'approvisionnement gouvernemental pour les entreprises noires à 20%. Que fera votre parti pour s'assurer qu'un pourcentage des contrats gouvernementaux aille aux entreprises noires? On peut commencer NPD, Parti vert, libéral.
So we absolutely do encourage investment in black businesses. And, the procurement has not, in terms of investment, we know that, certain organizations did apply to the investments that people were encouraged to apply. And when they did, there was some discrepancy in terms of, having to prove that they are black businesses. And that came up yesterday. We had an all-black candidate debate at the federal level, and that was an issue that was brought forward by many. So in terms of refining the process itself, that would be appreciated, as well as the contracts by government to black businesses. More of that and ensuring that that's happening. So it's one thing that we can have policies that speak to that, but ensuring that it is taking place through, collecting of data and information and seeing whether, the higher profit sort of things are also being targeted in there. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I think that the process of tender offer has to be done with impartiality and to go to the best project. And it's a very delicate topics because yes, Black community, okay, we want to make sure they get their fair share, but also the Asian community and all the different community also in Canada. So it's like topics that became like, where do we stop? So if it's impartial and nobody like really like influence the process, that's I think how things should be done. That being said, for sure, we need to have some program that will favorize, like Mr. Fergus is at the head of one of the program that favorize Black entrepreneurs. So I think that's a great way to give them the tools to make sure that they will arrive with a strong tender offer that will be competitive. And if everything is like, like on the table and there's like no bias, I think it's just the one that answer the better to the tender offer that will win it. But I think we need to help the Black entrepreneur for sure, but maybe not from that angle.
I'm going to answer your question shortly with pleasure, but I think I would like to help my friend from the Green Party understand that there is no process that's impartial. And certainly what has been considered to be impartial seems to always work against Black Canadians. This is a reason why you see in financial institutions don't lend to Black individuals or businesses as much as they do to non-Black individuals or businesses. When they do loan, the conditions are more stringent, the loans are smaller, and the interest rates are higher. So this is a reason why we need to take some positive steps on this. In regards to government contracting, we've discovered that, once again, when you start evaluating it, and I think this is at the root of that question, is that Black-owned, Black-run businesses take a minuscule amount of government procurement. So to that end, the government last year, in the fall economic statement, public PSPC, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting what it stands for, Public Services and Procurement Canada has set up an office now and undertook to specifically help Black-run, Black-owned businesses access PSPC procurement. Now that's one part of it, it's an important part of government. But what we've done since then is that we've taken the engagement to expand that out to all government departments. So once again, I think this is an important step to get, for government to get to know services and suppliers which are run by Blacks or that are owned by Blacks, to get to know them better, and discover, to make those links so that one day we can reach that wonderful point in the future in which everybody's treated equally without bias. But we're not there yet, and we're not there today.
Just a quick follow-up. What do you say to people who would suggest that what you're suggesting is discriminatory?
I would say that they would have to. This is the reason why disaggregated data is so important, is because when you take a look at the data, I do believe that people of good faith will take a look at the numbers and say, well, if we have such a fair system, how did we have such wonky results? Because if it was fair, you would expect it to be following the exact distribution or close to it, but not a minuscule percentage of the distribution of considering the existence of Black-owned, Black-run businesses in this country.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks for the information. But as we know, to answer a tender offer, sometimes it's very there's a lot of criteria, and sometimes just one little criteria could disqualify somebody that could be very good, and that's why I'm saying the help could come from another point of view, another angle. So we make sure that they will answer all those criteria, and they will offer something that's that's legit. I mean, that answer all those criteria, because I believe that we have it's very hard to be perfectly impartial. I give you that, but we have a public services and public servants are doing a great job, and that yeah, is there some racism, systemic racism? We need to identify it and where it is, and to make sure that that is not happening, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that, but we can't generalize all that to all the...
No. But
public
this is the insidious nature of unconscious bias. You're just not conscious of it, right? And so you and I as men, the three of us here, we might not think at all about leaving this place and walking down the street and going to the O train. But the two women at this table might be thinking about it a lot more than you and I are. That is that unconscious bias that we have. That exists. It's hard to get at. And that's why I'm not one to rush off and accuse everyone of being racist, and no one here is doing that. Unconscious bias is tough to get at, but we gotta work at it. And if we don't talk about it, and if we don't measure it, people won't be able to see it. So this is the tough part of it. So fair enough, but it's tough.
We have this is our final section, is it not? So this is our final section on foreign policy. So the question is this: what would your party do to ensure Canada does not play a role in harming the human rights of African people in places such as Haiti, the Congo, and Tigray, by, among other things, ensuring businesses based in Canada, as well as the Canadian military, are not engaging in violations? So I think that this question with regard to Haiti, there has been some concern about the role that Canada played, particularly in the coup d'etat that took place that resulted in the removal of Jean-Bertrand Aristide back in, I think it was in 2004. And there's a charge that Canada played a rather duplicitous role in that removal of the Haitian leader, and that Canada has often not played a constructive role in the Caribbean and in Africa, and that Canadian businesses have often engaged in practices which have been detrimental to people of these territories. So the question is being asked with that context in mind. So perhaps I'll ask Mr. Fergus to address that.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm not aware of the issue on Haiti in 2004. I'd have to learn about that situation, so I really can't comment on that. But in terms of how we can play a more positive role in the economic development, one of the things which the Prime Minister has been keen on over the last, just before COVID hit, and certainly it's part of our election platform, is actually trying to now saying we want to be part of the African continent's free trade agreement. We want to be supportive of it. We want to play a role in it. We want Canadian businesses to play an active and positive role in this regard. And so that's one of our election promises, for us to work with them and to also make stronger links. It really comes down to this. If we're going to play a positive role, we got to know the place. And it's nice to talk, but we actually have to be in there more than just government. It has to be businesses. It has to be through education, through especially higher education. There are so many ways which we can play that role in Africa as well as in the Caribbean community. So I think this is one of the reasons why it's part of our, you could find that page 77 in our election platform, where we do talk about the ways that we want to engage positively on an economic front on the African continent.
Ms. Mukbil, and then Mr.
We at the NDP, we promote peace, stability, and diplomacy as the best option, and discourage military solutions. I think we've learned from the war in Afghanistan that, if there was a war that could have translated to have some positive, it would have been that after 20 years, and yet it did not translate to such, did it? And so we also want to make sure that we have many companies here in Canada that produce weapons, so we want to make sure that weapons are not being used, Canadian weapons are not being used to violate human rights, which it is at this point in several countries. So,
Sell to Saudi Arabia?
no, we are saying that we need to stop selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. My father is Yemeni, and I'll tell you that I have family in Yemen who I'm disgusted that my country is allowing this to happen. Not only is Saudi Arabia bombing and killing Yemenis, but they are also, preventing NGOs and humanitarian assistance to the poorest of the poor in the world, and we are contributing to that. And the UN has called us on this, so it's really unfortunate. We also don't support the selling of weapons to Israel in the occupied territories. This is the longest occupation. It needs to end, and so we want, diplomatic, peaceful solutions to that conflict, which is, due. The NDP, we don't want to be selling weapons to countries that are violating human rights.
It's appropriate to ask Mr. Fergus, is it appropriate for Canada to be selling arms to Saudi Arabia and regimes like Saudi Arabia?
We have put together a number of panels to take a look at these issues. Let me put it this way, I won't answer it in terms of Saudi Arabia, I'll just answer it generally, saying that we believe that we should not be selling arms to countries with extreme human rights violations. And certainly we wouldn't want our arms to be used in that regard. And so there have been a number of panels which have taken a look at this and examined our export permits, and sometimes we approve and sometimes we don't approve because of those situations.
But we know what Saudi Arabia is doing in Yemen, right? Like we know, like the facts are there. So would you agree that it was wrong for the government to sell to that regime?
Well, if the panels that we've set up have come back with that conclusion, then I would expect that we wouldn't be selling.
Mr. Messier?
Yes, we're the Green Party is a non-violent organization party, so we go also with the diplomatic solution. I was going to talk also about Saudi Arabia. That's unacceptable. Like the government allowed the selling of tanks, and last summer a Canadian company sell some explosive also. So they have the permission, the authorization to sell some explosive to Saudi Arabia again, like it was in the Global Mail. It's unacceptable, and the government shouldn't do that. Saudi Arabia, we saw what happened to the Washington Post journalist. Like we never didn't even found his body. It's totally like, don't we have enough proof that we can't support a regime like that?
But it's easy for you to say that, right? Is it not the case, though, that Canadians are benefiting from, manufacturing these arms, and that there are, Canadians who depend on this business, right? They're Canadians whose jobs are dependent on these arms sales. Is that not important?
No, it's not important. I'm sorry, but they will have to find another job if they don't find a buyer that's like a democratic and an open country, like who are values that are similar to ours. It's like if that company is not able to find a democracy that needs arms to defend the people, why would we sell them some armaments? It's illogical. Like, are we trying to really like share our values, or I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. But in me, no. Like, I'm sorry, they would have to find another job and something else if they're not able to find a democracy that needs to defend itself and put the people's value and the country value out front.
Yes, Mukbel?
Look, this was a conscious choice that the government made, where they suspended it for some time and decided that they're not going to contribute to the atrocities that are happening in Yemen. And then when COVID hit and we needed, some funds, they decided to do it. And so it's so calculated. So we can suffer less, despite the fact that we are a G7 rich country. We're gonna make others suffer so that we suffer a little less. But we're willing to make that choice. And, you know, children that are dying of malaria, that are living below the poverty line, the poorest of the poor, we're willing to just step on them. It's so unfortunate. It's so disgraceful. I'm sorry.
So,
We're rapidly running out of time, out of real estate. I think we have about 2 minutes to go. So what I'm going to ask is if you could just wrap up, if you have a final message in 30 seconds, if you can each just say a few last words so that we can end this session. So I think we began with Ms. Mukbil, so I think we'll begin with Greg Fergus.
Thank you very much for listening to tonight's discussion and debate. I hope that you would hear from this debate that the Liberal Party is taking very seriously the needs of Black Canadians. Nous avons entrepris plusieurs initiatives qui est la réflexion d'une part de vous autres, de vous, de ce que vous avez travaillé pendant des décennies là-dessus. Et puis maintenant, on passe à l'action. Et puis c'est impressionnant. When I first started with Black Caucus, we made some symbolic victories and some small budget victories. But in 2021, we saw over 100 mentions of Black Canadians in the budget document and over $800 million of initiatives which directly come. I think we are working together. We have more work to do, and I hope to have the chance with your support to continue that work.
Thank you, Mr. Fergus. Monsieur Messier.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure. We need to work together to address those issues. I joined the Green Party like last year because there was a Black woman that got to the head of the party, and I say, go, I'm a man of action. I like to, you know, like to help and to go forward. And so I say, I'm going with, I was with the NDP for like from 2006 to 2021, and I decided to change and to go with the Green because I think that was great for the Green and for Canada to have that Black woman that was taking the leadership of the party. So I like to take action to help. We need to work together to make those things go away, and that we live into an equal like country where like everybody has a chance to become what he wants to become. And we will check the Liberals if they get elected or the NPD to make sure they will respect their program and address the environmental like issues that are right there. The emergency is there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, the NDP is serious about tackling anti-Black racism. I'm very serious about tackling anti-Black racism. We at the NDP, 50% of our candidates are women, 30% are racialized Canadians, and we have many people who are living with disabilities. We're very serious about equity, and we've shown it. And so in Ottawa South, we have a very diverse riding who's only been represented by men so far, so we need a woman in office, and we also need a Black woman to get on the Status of Women Committee, which we currently do not have. And so please do vote for the NDP, vote for me, Huda Mukbil, for Ottawa South. Thank you very much for the organizers, thanks for my candidates, the other candidates, and thank you all for listening at home. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alors, c'est la fin du débat des candidats. Nous souhaitons remercier Madame Bill, Monsieur Messier et Monsieur Fergus d'avoir participé.
And also thank you to our audience today for being such an attentive group, and also for those who are watching online. And once again, if I can just very briefly just ask the organizers, because these kinds of events always take a lot of work, and I'd just like to recognize the people who organized this event. If you could just kind of stand up very quickly so that we can see you. I know there are a couple of you who raised your hand. Thank you very much.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
This federal election, Canadians want to know what's next for Canada. For Rogers TV, the focus is on local candidates addressing local issues. Get to know the candidates running in your riding with Rogers TV's coverage of the local campaign. And on election night, find out what's next with Election 21, the local results.